Good afternoon. Welcome to the Redacted Report. I'm your host.
Where you going?
Coming to you from an undisclosed location. In today's story, the Pittsburgh Steelers absolutely demolished free agency, in my opinion. And I understand this video I'm a little late to the party with this video, but that was by design because I was holding out, hoping maybe we would sign Tyrann Mathieu. I know that was probably just a pipe dream, but we can all have that dream, right? But we did not sign Tyrann Mathieu. We will get to who we did sign in a little bit, but let's just, I'm going to go down the list of the free agents we brought in, because we were very busy. The Steelers usually are not this busy in free agency. And, of course, we usually don't have that much cap space either. We're usually trying to restructure 8 or 9 guys and release a couple just to get under the cap, just to have enough space to sign our draft picks. So, This was a good free agency, and I think the Steelers absolutely nailed it. There wasn't anything what you would call the sexy pick, the sexy signing, but they all filled needs. Every one of them filled a need. So let's just go down the list and talk about them right now. The first, and obviously most important, Mitchell Trubisky. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this because I did a whole video on that. If you want to know my thoughts on that, check that out. But like I said, they signed him to 2 years for $14 million. It's worth up to $27 million if he hits incentives. And I think he will. I think he's going to be the starter in Pittsburgh for the foreseeable future. Who knows what the draft will hold, but we will see. But I think Mitchell Trubisky obviously is the biggest signing. I wanted to sign him last year so he could sit a year behind Ben, but he was able to go up there in Buffalo and learn from Allen, Dable, and Ken Dorsey, which can only benefit him, obviously. So, great signing, Mitchell Trubisky. We got our quarterback. Enough said on that one. And now let's go to some other guys. We really shored up the offensive line. We brought in Mason Cole out from Minnesota, who's going to play center, about 3 years, $15.7 million. That's not a bad deal. I like Mason Cole. I do think he's going to slide right in as the starting center day one. He's going to Kendrick Green. I was hoping he would develop, but he if anything, he regressed last year. We'll see what happens with Green going forward. I think Green should move to guard. He's just not center material, especially now that we've actually got an actual center in Mason Cole. I think he's, like I said, not the sexy pick, not the sexy signing, but he fills a huge need. As does the next guy, James Daniels, a guard for the Bears. We signed him 3 years, $26.5 million. That obviously means he's going to be the starter. He's probably going to start in Trey Turner's place. Thank God he's gone, and get him out of there. He is garbage. But James Daniels, he's young, he's tough, he's strong. I think he's going to be an excellent pickup in addition to this offensive line. Like Mason Cole, I think James Daniels will have even more of an impact than Cole. And hopefully, the other guard position, Kevin Dotson can, bounce back after a really rough second year. But we'll see. Maybe Kendrick Green moves to guard. I think he would be a better guard than he is a center. But we'll see. But for now, James Daniels will be one of the starting guards. Probably the spot left by Trey Turner. That's a given. Barring injury or anything, he's going to be the starter for the foreseeable future. And on the defensive side of the ball, we signed Myles Jack, the inside linebacker, to a 2-year, $16 million deal. And there's two ways you can look at this. One, if he can reclaim the Myles Jack of a couple of years ago, this is a steal. But if he's the Myles Jack of last year, it probably could be considered a waste of money. But we had to do it, obviously. We cut Schobert, who was garbage anyway. And we've got Devin Bush, who needs to bounce back, but I'm not optimistic he will. So hopefully, Myles Jack has just a renewed vigor and interest in the game coming to Pittsburgh. He was really excited to come to Pittsburgh, so hopefully that translates on the field. And if it does, this is a steal. And if Myles Jack and both Jack and Bush can reclaim what they had in the past and become the players of old, we've got a damn great linebacking core, that's for sure. Because, Myles Jack, it feels like Myles Jack's been in the league for like over a decade, and he's still in his 20s. That's just crazy. When I saw how old he was, I'm like, that's craziness. But he's still young. He's still got a little mileage left on him. He should still have some in the tank. Let's just see if he has it, in his head and in his heart. If he's got it there, Myles Jack can be the player that he once was, and a player that used to give the Steelers nightmares, then that's better. And we signed Levi Wallace to a 2-year, $8 million deal. He's going to be I'd say he's going to be the starting corner. I mean, that's a good deal. Levi Wallace is a good player. I think he can slot in as one of the starting corners because I think Cam Sutton's going to be the nickel corner because that's where he's better at. So we have some openings at our cornerback spot. And you can always use defensive back depth. That's for sure. And like Levi Wallace said, one of the reasons he signed with Pittsburgh is because Mitchell Trubisky signed here, and he likes what Trubisky brings to the table, and that's very telling of the kind of person and player Mitchell Trubisky is. So that's another plus. And I think Levi Wallace, I mean, no one's going to confuse him for Rod Woodson or something like that, but I think he is an upgrade to what we have in the secondary. Our corners kind of so-so, and obviously I guess there's still a chance we could bring back Joe Hayden, but I mean, with each passing day, it seems less and less likely. You never know. If we can, great. If not, I think Levi Wallace is a pretty good. If nothing else, maybe a stopgap for a young guy we draft. I say that with a little trepidation because let's face it, our history of developing defensive backs isn't that great. So it is what it is. But I think Levi Wallace at 2 years, $8 million. Obviously, we didn't break the bank for him, and if he ends up sucking, it's not going to cost us that much money. So it was a good deal for us. It was a low risk, high reward type of deal. I think Levi Wallace is going to be good. And another guy we signed was a special teams ace and kick returner, Gunnar Olszewski from New England, former All-Pro. And one thing we have needed pretty much since Antonio Brown was sent packing is a quality return man. I mean, I wanted Ray McLeod to be that guy, but it's just something he just was never able to break it. Now maybe Gunnar Olszewski can do that, and obviously for 2 years, $4.2 million, that's a good deal for a guy who can return punts and play good special teams. I am big on special teams. I think that special teams is very important. I think a lot of people overlook it. As a former player who played well over a decade of football and have been following football for over 3 decades, I understand the importance of special teams, and he is a special teams dynamo. And he's going to be paired with another special teams ace that we re-signed in Miles Killebrew to a 2-year, $4 million deal, similar to what we gave Olszewski. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Olszewski. I may not be. I'm not good with pronunciations sometimes, but and Killebrew, that's once again not a flashy signing. We re-signed him, but he's a great special teamer. He doesn't really give you much on the defensive side of the ball, but he can play the safety position in a pinch. But he's more of just a special teams dynamo, which is great. Our special teams got a lot better this year, especially Olszewski. If he can be that all-pro punt returner, that just gives us one more dangerous weapon. So that's great. And I mentioned Miles Killebrew. I lumped him in with Olszewski because they're special teamers. But we re-signed a lot of players too. Some are kind of head-scratcher. Some I like. Some we will see. First off, the one that's kind of a head-scratcher for me, but I guess I understand why they did it. We re-signed Chukwuekwuora for our offensive tackle to a 3-year deal for about $29 million. I guess that's not a super huge amount of money to give an offensive tackle, but Chooks has been... what can I say about Chooks? I guess I can just say, let's just break it down. He's just been wildly inconsistent. Sometimes Chooks looks like a man possessed and a dude who can just bulldoze anybody, and other times he just kind of looks like he's lost. Sometimes he looks slow and unmotivated. So it's really just, it's almost Jekyll and Hyde with Chooks. Chooks has the potential to be an absolute bookend tackle for the next decade. He has that kind of talent, but is that talent and potential going to translate to ability on the field? You see flashes of it, but it's not consistent. Obviously, he needs to get a lot more consistent. And we re-signed a lot of defensive players here. We got Ahkello Witherspoon re-signed, 2 years, $8 million, about the same deal that Levi Wallace got. He will work into the rotation and be one of the guys in line to be a starter, as will Arthur Mollett, who we re-signed him at 2 years, $3.8 million. That's even cheaper. And like I said, Mollett and Witherspoon, they're kind of the same player. They've shown flashes. Witherspoon a little more than Mollett, but they've shown flashes, and they will see if they want a big deal. This is make or break for both of them. You know, they're going to be competing with Levi Wallace and Cam Sutton, and anyone we drafted. I guess Justin Lane's still around. I don't know. I can't believe how that dude has been able to stay on the roster as long as he has. He must have pictures of the front office guys in a compromising situation or something to be on the roster, but they'll definitely be working in there. That's a competition to be really looking at very closely in training camp, is that cornerback position, because Cam Sutton is our best corner, and let's be honest here, he's not a very good outside corner. He's better in the nickel. He's better in covering the slot, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just we hoped when we re-signed Sutton that he would be one of the guys, not necessarily a shutdown corner, but one of the guys on the outside, and we can slide someone into the nickel. But he's a better nickel corner, which you need that in today's NFL anyway. So I'm not hating on Sutton. I do like Sutton. So that position is up for grabs. I would not be surprised if I had to say right now. I would say there's a good chance that Levi Wallace and Ahkello Witherspoon are the starting cornerbacks come week 1. But like I said, it's a long way to go. Anything can happen in that amount of time. One of our biggest re-signings that I really liked was Monty Adams. He was a defensive tackle, basically brought in to fill in on the defensive line with all the injuries we had. Obviously, we didn't have Tuitt all year. Alu got hurt early. And I'll be honest with you, Adams was very, very effective. He's a very solid player. He was not fancy. You know, he got a 2-year, $5 million deal. That's a very good deal for a guy who does what he does, because he's not gonna get you double-digit sacks every year. He's a consistent guy. He's hard to move, and he plays hard and he plays tough. A guy like that, who may not be the most talented dude, but if you play hard and you play tough, you can find yourself getting a lot of playing time. Especially, we got a lot of age on our defensive line, so we need his youth in a rotation. We don't, because like I said, we don't know what's happened with Tuitt. Alu's in the 30s, and Cam Hayward still playing at a high level. But I mean, let's be honest here, that could drop at any time, obviously. So Monty Adams, I think that was an excellent pick. I wanted to re-sign him since the day free agency started, because he showed me a lot. He may not be the guy who could be like an every down anchor to your defensive line, but he is damn sure an effective rotational player for 2 years, $5 million. That's a steal. So I like that. And as I mentioned earlier about the signing of Tyrann Mathieu, why I waited for this video. Maybe we didn't. Maybe we would get him. Obviously, that wasn't the case. We re-signed Terrell Edmonds to a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. I'm not the world's biggest fan of Terrell Edmonds. I'm not going to lie. I think he was picked 2 rounds too early when he was drafted. A lot of people don't agree with me, but I had him in the 3rd round at best. And I still don't understand. When we first drafted Edmonds, I thought for sure because of his frame, they were thinking about having him put on a little bit of bulk and move to linebacker. That's kind of what I thought, sort of like what the Panthers did with Thomas Davis years before and what the Bears did with Urlacher. Because Urlacher was like a hybrid safety linebacker, and he was a full-time linebacker. And Thomas Davis was a safety, mostly in college, and then he played safety his first year in the league, and then he transitioned to linebacker and had a pretty damn good career. I was wondering if that's what they were thinking about with him, but obviously that didn't happen. But at least this is only a $2.5 million deal. When they declined his 5th-year option, it was going to be worth over $6 million. So, I mean, we re-signed him for a third of what he was getting if we would have picked up his 5th-year option. So, makes good business sense. He does have good chemistry with Minkah Fitzpatrick, and he has played better with Minkah Fitzpatrick. So he's not the worst safety in the world. Obviously, we all want a Tyrann Mathieu, because you imagine Tyrann Mathieu and Minkah Fitzpatrick in the same secondary. Good Lord, if we didn't win a Super Bowl with just that, then that's just failure of epic proportions. But Terrell Edmonds, there are worse options out there. And for 1 year, so we could be looking at the safety position in the draft. I figure we probably will draft some defensive backs. So, we got him for a 1 year, basically a 1 year rental for Terrell Edmonds. He probably will, unless he really balls out this year. Which, last year was a contract year. He didn't exactly ball out then, so I'm not expecting him to. But he's solid enough. I mean, he's better than Mike Mitchell or Ryan Mundy, so that's something. So, and we've also re-signed, I don't know the parameters of these. Carl Joseph, who's another safety who I thought he would actually get a little more playing time than he did, but it's depth. I mean, you can't have too much depth going into training camp, and who knows what could happen. He may not even make it to training camp. If we draft a safety, he may get cut. Who knows? And also J.C. Hassenauer, I think I can never pronounce his name right. I call him Hassenbooger, but he's a pretty good signing too. He's a lot like the Monty Adams signing on the offensive line, because when he played center in place of Kendrick Green, it seemed like the offensive line the flow was just much better when he played. And he's not a superstar, but he's a solid guy. He's a solid backup. He can play. Obviously plays center. He plays some guard. Who knows? You may be able to slide him out to tackle. That's not ideal, but in a pinch, it's good to have guys who can play every position on the offensive line. But I think he actually is a better center right now than Kendrick Green. Now, will he be a better center in a couple of years than Kendrick Green? Who knows? Who knows what Green's going to do? There's still a world of potential in there. It's just a matter of whether or not that it can be tapped into. We don't know. But that's basically the Steelers' free agency right there. And I think, obviously, the AFC pretty much went insane with the signing. So the Steelers really didn't register too much after Trubisky, but I think the Steelers killed it in free agency. They brought back the players who provide quality depth at much needed positions. We got our quarterback. We got two giant pieces of our offensive line that I think will be fixtures in there for years to come. If Miles Jack can regain his old form, then he's just going to absolutely be a monster in that defense. Levi Wallace, I think, will be a starting corner. Gunnar Olszewski is going to be a punt returner, great special teamer. Can't have enough of them. So I think we did great in free agency. Now with the draft coming up, we'll see what happens. Will we draft a quarterback? That's the big question. I'm hoping we don't, but we'll see what happens. But as for free agency, the Steelers usually don't do this, but it's almost as if they knew what they were doing for a team who doesn't really splurge in free agency that much. They did a pretty damn good job. They killed free agency. Obviously, some teams made bigger splashes, but I don't know how many teams actually filled more needs in free agency than Pittsburgh did. They did a great job, and hopefully that they don't prove me to, these players that they signed don't prove me to be an idiot come next season. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But right now, on paper, I'm liking what I see. They filled the position. They're stocking the cupboard, so to speak. Got young. All these players are young, too. That's the thing. They're young in their 20s, just coming into their prime years. So they got guys who could be anchors at their position for the next 5+ years, which is just great because we didn't really splurge on anyone. I mean, the $26.5 million for 3 years for James Daniels. At one time, that would have been a lot of money for a guard. Anymore, guards' money have gone up, and guard is a more important position. It's always been an important position, but now it's noticed as a more important position nowadays than it was back in the day. So we didn't really. None of these signings that we did will put us in cap hell if these players just don't work out or if something happens and we have to cut them or trade them or whatever. We won't be in salary cap hell for the next 5 years with a bunch of dead money. So they did a great job. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in the draft. Looking forward to see how these players gel on the field. I think if they can all, some can realize their potential, some can find their old self. We're going to be a very dangerous team in the AFC North, and we needed this because we got to keep up with every other team in the damn AFC because, they pretty much they did a talent raid of the NFC. Let's be honest here, but we're just in the terms of the Steelers. I think they had one of the best were some of the best free agency signings in the league, all under the radar, but all filled needs. They did a great job. That's the way I see it. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And I thank you for watching, and I hope you join me next time on the Redacted Report. Take care.